Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight for this special report. I'm Bob Nabisco, and I'm joined here with Jim Spring, our Middle East correspondent. He's going to be explaining the current campaign against ISIS and the other people involved. Jim, thank you for being with us. Thanks, Bob. So as you know, the United States has been fighting ISIS ever since August of 2014. Specific air divisions have been there conducting airstrikes throughout the Middle East, specifically in Syria and Iraq. Their main goal is to stop the expansion of ISIS, and it is not just the United States alone. Together, they have led a coalition of more than 60 nations in different parts of this conflict. Some of them, including the United States, Germany, Canada, France, Australia, Turkey, Italy, Poland, and Denmark, have been there since the beginning. Many of our Middle Eastern allies, including Iran, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, have pledged to fight ISIS as well. Other nations have been very helpful in providing aid to the refugees in these torn countries also. So these airstrikes are not just specific to the Middle East. They have also been conducted in Tunisia, Libya, and many other nations around the world, wherever we see ISIS key leaders needing to be taken out. Altogether, we have seen over 8,000 airstrikes against ISIS targets within the last year and a half. These attacks have been against tanks, staging areas, oil infrastructure, mostly to cut off their economic supply, and many other military targets that the international community deems as a responsible target. More recently, we have seen the introduction of the Russians and the Chinese in this arena as well. The Russians have been involved in the Syrian civil war since the end of September of this year, but that was mostly on the side of the Syrian president al-Assad. It wasn't until ISIS took responsibility for shooting down a Russian flight in November that they became interested in fighting ISIS. So now that Russia is working with the West, I think that we will see new changes in the fight against ISIS. The Chinese coming into the fight will definitely make it interesting. Also, we now have the UN Security Council all on the same side of the issue, so they can make important decisions in the UN if they'd like to go through that route. I really think the true test will come from what every nation wants once ISIS is gone. It's no surprise that the US and Russia differ on President Assad. So once ISIS is contained and or eliminated, that issue will also need to be resolved in some way. That could influence how the actions taken against ISIS unfolds throughout the next couple months or years. But the ultimate goal is obviously to destroy and contain ISIS. Now many in Washington differ on the way that they think that ISIS should be contained. Politicians see the need for increased warfare, airstrikes, and sometimes even ground troops, but that might not be the best solution. We have seen those instances fail in our other campaigns, including most recently Vietnam in the 60s. Now, I think politicians need to recognize that this is a new type of warfare, and we can't fight it by just bombing them into oblivion. You'll deal with civilian casualties, and that will only make ISIS's claim stronger. We need to have a united effort against ISIS and conduct it in a way that we have never done it before. And until that happens, we will see ISIS continue to grow around the world, but mostly in the Middle East. Thank you for reporting on the current overview of our campaign against ISIS, Jim. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm Bob Nabisco. Until next time.